For a while in Colombia, I caught myself where I was constantly referencing podcasts in my everyday conversations. I would be chatting with someone and I would just constantly be rattling off anecdote after anecdote. Yeah, the other day I heard it on a podcast. And it's funny you mentioned that. I heard a podcast the other day. One of my friends started calling me Podcast Tommy because I couldn't shut the fuck up about it. And then I started noticing what I was doing and I was like, yeah, he's right. I am constantly repeating things that I've heard on podcasts. So he brought my attention to it. I noticed it and I was like, well, I should stop doing that. It's getting annoying. And so I stopped basically providing accreditation of what I was saying. So I stopped saying, I heard on a podcast the other day. I would just tell the anecdote or story. So essentially, I was just kind of like shifted into plagiarizing, where because I wasn't mentioning that I heard it on a podcast, I was just saying things as if they were my own thoughts. And eventually I was like, well, am I having any original thoughts now? Or am I just constantly spending time listening to other people talk and I am repeating what they say? And maybe those cunts on podcasts are doing the same thing. They're plugged into the matrix. They don't have a Bugatti. And so they're matrix little agent smithies. And they're just repeating shit that they've heard on podcasts as well. Or not even on a podcast, just some other fucker has said. And or on a YouTube video or whatever. And we've got our own little personal algorithm, our own little favorite uh toys, avatar heads that talk, that say shit. And we're like, yeah, I like these ones. I've got about five or six dudes that I like, and I'm just gonna repeat the shit that they say, and accidentally pass it off as my own. It is weird the kind of false intimacy that podcasts does kind of foster. There's that meme of the dude who's standing next to the stock photo of a group of friends laughing, and he's just kind of like put himself next to it and he's like joining in on the chuckle. That's what listening to pods feels like. Maybe not this one because it's just a one crazy person talking to someone directly. Apart from my occasional chuckle to myself, it's not like I'm having an uproariously great time with a bunch of other bros right now. But with other ones, with other podcasts where it's more of a hang vibe, you do feel like you're part of the action, but you're not. You're contributing absolutely nothing, and you're just listening to the shit that they say. And yeah, it does kind of. It's an easier way to socialize because you don't actually have to go out anywhere. You don't have to reach out to anyone. You don't have to, yeah, deal with uncomfortable shit that impacts your life. You can just be like, yeah, hanging out with the buds, the Legion of Skanks or Matt and Shane's secret pod. You're just like, yeah, they're my bros, man. They're not. They don't know you. You don't know them. But you definitely fucking listen to tons of shit that they say all the time. And yeah, the thing is I'm kind of so deep into listening to podcasts now, and every kind of podcast has like a life cycle. There are many that were good 5 years ago that became kind of like overly produced or ran out of steam, and then you kind of like you bring in some new ones, and yeah, which are peaking, and then you kind of get off them before they jump the shark, and you kind of like there's tons of good shows out there that you can kind of like fit in. But I generally find that I have like a rotation of maybe like four or five, which I listen to pretty religiously. And yeah, at the end of the week, you're like, holy fuck, I spent a lot of time with these imaginary friends. And I wonder how much of my own thinking is being now influenced by these strangers I'm eavesdropping on constantly. And it's weird when you start kind of like venturing out into the real world and having IRL interactions, because you're like, am I? It's almost like reverse coke talk. When you're coked up, you are just not listening to what the other person says, and waiting for your turn to speak. Whereas with like podcast, when you've been eavesdropping on interesting podcasts too much, then you're kind of like you just become like a little, I don't know, reporter. You're transcribing everything that you come across. Every time someone says something, you're like, all right, let's record this because I might need to repeat it at some point in the future. So you listen to what they say, record it in your mind, and then maybe maybe it's like a hate listen in IRL. They tell you something retarded, and you're like, yeah, that's fucking stupid, but I'm gonna listen intently, as opposed to tune them out or ignore them like I might have done prior to my podcast addiction. And so they finished talking now. Now I could interject with an original thought, or I could just repeat something I've heard someone else say. So anyway, I think it's like reverse coke talk. I kind of I've started just randomizing, saying things I don't believe in, um, getting anecdotes wrong on purpose, just to kind of add a little fucking bit of sand in the oyster. Let's turn this bitch into a pearl. But yeah, I don't think it's like destroyed original thinking, but I definitely think that, yeah, you notice like trends. Let's say you do have those like 4 or 5 podcasts that you listen to, and then one person will bring up on one of those podcasts, and I don't know, Huberman. They'll be like, listen to Andrew Huberman the other day, and then another person will, on a separate podcast, bring up the exact same thing. And yeah, we're all kind of like riding the waves of the algorithm at the same time. So it's kind of a natural, we're all going to be discussing the same type of shit. And I guess that's probably the nuance in the same shit, that we're that provides the difference. But anyway, I don't think any of this made any sense. So therefore, people aren't going to repeat it unless they're going to be like, I heard this really stupid thing the other day, and yeah, this is what it was.